When there is an ending, there was a beginning. Every victim has a picture to paint. Every true crime has its time and place. Please join our MJ podcast, the series Deep into the Woods, Missing Persons, Unsolved Crimes, and the Does. Welcome to our MJ podcast, Deep into the Woods, Episode 4, Part 3, Human Trafficking Ring of Children in the 1920s to 1950. Welcome to Memphis, Tennessee. This child trafficking ring ran through a children's home as legal adoptions. This child trafficking ring destroyed many lives to count. The mastermind of this criminal enterprise was Georgia Tann. Georgia Tann ran a children's home. Tann was an American who operated the Tennessee Children's Home Society, an adoption agency in Memphis, Tennessee, trafficking children for a large profit. Georgia Tann ran a black market adoptions and child trafficking ring for 30 years. Tann used the unlicensed home as a front for her black market baby adoption scheme from the 1920s until a state investigation into numerous instances of adoption fraud being perpetrated by her closed the institution in 1950. Tann died of cancer before the investigation made its findings public. Tann's custom of placing children with high members of society, which was considered a normal adoption in America, and many of her adopted practices, often designed to hide the origin of her adoptees, became of a standard practice. Her father, Judge George Tann, reportedly had been a domineering personality. Judge Tann would sometimes bring abandoned or neglected children home with him, remarking he would need a minister, a school teacher, and a doctor to figure out what to do with the children. Georgia Tann had taken courses in social work at Columbia University in New York for 2 summers. Tann's desire to become a lawyer as her father had been. Tann's father coached her, and she read the law and passed the state bar exam in Mississippi. However, her father did not want her to practice law because it was unusual for women. With no apparent desire to get married or to have children, she availed herself to one of the few careers available to unmarried women of her time, which was social work. Upon graduation, she briefly worked in Texas as a social worker, but quit after a short time later. Mississippi Children's Home Society. Tann found employment at the Mississippi Children's Home Society, working as a receiving director at the K. McWillie Powers Receiving Home for Children. In 1922, Tann adopted an infant and she named her June. A daughter of a family friend named Ann Atwood also worked at the home as a house mother. Ann was 8 years her junior. It is unclear when they became a couple, but when Tan was terminated because of her questionable child-placing methods in 1924, she moved to Memphis, Tennessee with June Atwood and Atwood's infant son, Jack. Atwood had recently given birth to a son out of wedlock, and around this time she used a surname, Hollingsworth, to her name, likely to give the impression that she had actually been widowed. While the cohabitation of the two financially independent women referred to as Boston marriages had once been socially acceptable, such arrangements had begun to be viewed as suspiciously homosexual. Tan and Atwood hid the true nature of their relationship. The Tennessee Children's Home Society. The Tennessee Children's Home Society in Memphis, Tan was hired as the executive secretary at the Shelby County branch of the Tennessee Children's Home Society. Its offices were located on the 5th floor of the Goodwin Building downtown. The society was the largest in the state and had branches in Jackson, Knoxville, and Chattanooga. Tan used aggressive tactics to eventually take over the organization. In 1924, Tan began trafficking children. While Tennessee law permitted agencies to place children with appropriate applicants in an effort to ban the selling of children, agencies could charge only for their services. In keeping with the law, the society charged about $7 for adoptions within the Tennessee law. However, Tan also arranged for out-of-state private adoptions where she charged a premium. As many as 80% of these adoptions were to parents in New York and California. Records indicate that between 1940 and 1950, the agency placed 3,000 children just in those two states. Alma Walton and Regina Warner both worked for Tan. These ladies had made trips every 3 weeks with 4 to 6 babies in with them. Walton to California and Warner to New York. They would rent hotel rooms where they would meet with prospective adoptive parents, most of whom were wealthy. Each couple would pay $700 in a check made out to Georgia Tan. Additionally, Tan might charge prospective parents for background checks that she never pursued, allow travel costs at the highest rates, and adoption paperwork at 5 times the actual cost. The state of Tennessee itself was contributing $61,000 a year to the agency, with 31% of that money going towards the Memphis branch. Profits were kept in a secret bank account under a false corporation name at this time. Adoptions in the states such as Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri could be arranged for $750. It was alleged that she pocketed 80 to 90% of the fees from these adoptions for her own personal use. She also failed to report the income to either the Society Board or to the Internal Revenue Service. In a 1979 interview with the Los Angeles Times, Tennessee Special Prosecutor Robert Taylor reported that 1,200 children were adopted out of the home between 1944 and 1950, but only a few of them remained with Tennessee families. Notable personalities who used TAN's services included actress Joan Crawford. Twin daughters Kathy and Cynthia were adopted through the agency, while daughter Christine Crawford and son Christopher were adopted through other agencies. June Allison and her husband Dick Powell also used the Memphis-based home for adopting a child, as did the adoptive parents of a professional wrestler, Ric Flair. The New York governor who signed a law stealing birth certificates from New York adoptees in 1935 also adopted a child through this agency. TAN used a variety of methods to procure children. Through pressure tactics, threats of legal actions, and other ways, she would dupe and coerce birth parents, mostly poor single mothers, to turn their children over to her custody, often under false pretenses. Alma Semple, one of TAN's victims, described her as a stern-looking woman with close-cropped gray hair, round wireless glasses, and an air of utter authority. TAN also arranged for the taking of children born to inmates at Tennessee mental institutions and those born to wards of the state through her connections. To meet demand, TAN resorted to kidnappings. In some cases, single parents would drop their children off at nursery schools, only to be told by welfare agents had taken their children. In others, children would be temporarily placed in an orphanage, claiming the family was experiencing illness or unemployment. The parents find out later that the orphanage had adopted them out or had no record of the children ever being placed there. TAN was also documented as taking children born from unwed mothers at birth, claiming that the newborns required medical care. When the mothers asked about the children, TAN or her accomplices would explain that the babies had died when they actually had been placed in foster homes or adopted. TAN destroyed records of the children who were processed through the society and conducted minimal background checks on adoptive homes. As a result, the Child Welfare League of America dropped the Tennessee Children's Home Society from its list of qualifying institutions in 1941. Many of the files of the children were facts of fiction before being presented to adoptive parents. This which covered up the children's circumstances prior to being placed with the society. When an adoptive parent discovered that the information on the child was incorrect, such in cases of falsified medical histories, TAN often threatened the adoptive parents with possible legal action that would force a surrender of their children by demonstrating that they were unfit parents. However, In a letter drafted in 1947, Tan's attorney said that the prospective adoptive couple had complete custody and control of the child for 1 year. They may submit the child to any physical or mental examination they wish and take any steps that they may desire to the assertion that they have a healthy and normal child. If it is not, the Tennessee Children's Home takes back the child without question. Let's take a short pause for the cause, and we'll be back in a moment. MJA would like to give a special shout out to Shiloh's Restaurant, located at 202 Central Street in Woodsville, New Hampshire. MJA and groups like ours have eaten there several times. The food is excellent and they serve alcohol. The service is Class A and the prices are fair. It has great atmosphere and it's kid friendly. Once again, that's Shiloh's Restaurant, located in Woodsville, New Hampshire. Please check it out. Welcome back to our MJ podcast, Deep into the Woods, Episode 4, Part 3, Human Trafficking Ring of Children in the 1920s to 1950. Georgia Tann's claim to fame: she was labeled as a serial killer, pedophile, kidnapper, and human trafficker. Tann's crimes were accomplished with the aid of a Memphis family court judge, Camille Kelly, who used her position of authority to sanction Tann's tactics and activities. Tann would identify children as being from homes which could not provide for their care, and Kelly would push the matter through her dockets. Kelly also served custody of divorced mothers, placing the children with Tann, who then arranged for adoption of the children into homes better able to provide for the children's care. However, many of the children were placed into homes where they were used as child labor on farms or put with abusive families. Bypassing Shelby County Probate Court, most of the adoption cases were handled in the counties of Dyer, Haywood, and Hardman. Tann also had connections with former Memphis, Tennessee Mayor E. H. Boss Crump, who continued to have political presence until his death. Mayor Crump had long been known to take bribes from unlawful establishments such as brothels and gambling halls, a fact which Tann used to her advantage. She enjoyed a lavish lifestyle and was widely respected in the community, counting among her friends prominent families, politicians, and lawmakers. While in her care, Tann mistreated children with reports of neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and murder. With no housing facilities, the society held children awaiting placement in public facilities or foster homes. In the 1930s, Memphis had the highest infant mortality rate in the nation, largely due to Tann. In 1943, a wealthy businessman donated the mansion at 1556 Popular Avenue to the society. The offices and intake rooms were put on the bottom floor, while the nurseries were upstairs. The all-female staff wore all-white nursing uniforms, despite the fact that they were mostly untrained and even substance abusers. The children were frequently sedated, and those who were difficult to place were allowed to die of malnutrition. Tann regularly ignored doctors' recommendations for sick children, denying them care or medicine, which often led to preventable deaths from illnesses such as diarrhea. While some of her victims are known to be buried in Elmwood Cemetery in Memphis, Tennessee, many other children were never accounted for, and the exact number of deceased children remains unknown, with estimates of about 500 deaths due to mistreatment. Investigation and criminal charges. At the time, the so-called black market adoptions were not illegal, but were considered ethically and morally wrong. Reasons of the day included the fact that young, unwed mothers were often coerced to give up wanted children. The suitability of the adopted parents was often hastily ignored. Information about the child's heritage and medical history was lost, and the adoptive parents were unaware of any physical or mental illnesses. The Tennessee governor of the time, Gordon Browning, launched an investigation into the society on September 11, 1950, after receiving reports that the agency was selling children for profit. He assigned Memphis attorney Robert Taylor to the case. Public Welfare Commissioner accused Tan and her partners of receiving as much as $1 million in profits. The Tennessee Children's Home Society was closed in 1950. Tan is estimated to have stolen over 5,000 children. New York and California vowed to take action, but the children's adoptions were never investigated, and no children were ever restored. Tan died of cancer 3 days before the state filed charges against the society, thus escaping prosecution. For her part, Judge Kelly was believed to be receiving bribes for rulings in Tan's favor. A 1951 report to Browning by the Tennessee Department of Public Welfare said that while she had failed on many occasions to aid destitute families and permitted family ties to be destroyed, she had not personally profited from the rulings. She retired shortly after the start of the investigation and died in 1950 without any charges having been brought against her. Over several decades, 19 of the children who died at the Tennessee Children's Home Society was due to abuse, neglect that Tan subjected them to, were buried in a lot at the historic Elmwood Cemetery with no headstones. Tan bought the lot sometime before 1923 and recorded the children there by the first names such as Baby Estelle and Baby Joseph. In 2015, the cemetery raised $13,000 to erect a monument to their memory. It reads in part, "In memory of the children who finally rest here, unmarked if not unknown, and of all the hundreds who died under the cold, hard hand of the Tennessee Children's Home Society. Their final resting place unknown, their final peace a blessing. The hard lesson of their fate changed adoption procedures and laws nationwide. Tennessee of the social work standards, without providing the needed funding, contributed to the abuse in the system. The Tennessee Children's Home Society scandal resulted in adoption reform laws in Tennessee in 1951. Her custom of creating false birth certificates for adoptees, which she hid the origins of the children, became a standard practice. In 1979, the state adopted legislation requiring the state to assist siblings who are trying to find each other, while a bill that extended this provision to birth parents did not pass. In 1996, the state of Tennessee enacted Chapter 532 of the Tennessee Public Acts of 1996, which revised the process of obtaining adoption records by releasing them to adult adoptees of the Tennessee Children's Home Society upon receiving permission from any living birth parents. Prior to the 1920s, adoption was a rare practice in the United States, with the Boston Children's Aid Society placing only 5 children per year. In 1928, TAN placed 206 children with adoptive families. Believing in class distinctions, TAN felt that children should be taken from poor families and placed with what she called people of the higher type. Because of TAN's insistence on choosing wealthy adoptive families, the practice of adoption became associated with the famous and power brokers, removing so much of the stigma it had previously known in American culture. The current Tennessee Children's Home, which is accredited by the state of Tennessee, has no connection with Georgia TAN nor the society which she operated. TAN's personal life. TAN adopted Hollingsworth on August 2nd, 1943 in Dyer County, Tennessee, a legal provision that same-sex couples used at the time to ensure that their partners would inherit their property. TAN died in 1950 and was buried in her family's plot in Hickory Cemetery. TAN died of cancer, according to Dr. Alma Richards on the death certificate on September 15, 1950. 3 days before Governor Gordon Browning of Tennessee filed charges against TAN's home. The home was permanently closed in December 1950. My concerns: where are the ones who worked for TAN, and where did they end up? It's almost safe to say that some of the other workers went on with the black market adoption scam because of the money involved. They learned from TAN's mistakes and learned to avoid an arrest, or maybe some of them actually went legal. All those children, and they didn't have a fighting chance. I wonder how many of them ended up in good homes. Sometimes children adjust and things turn out fine, and then others end up in a sexual slavery situation. My positive thinking: I hope some of the children were too young to remember. I have a quote for you all. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. Harriet Tubman. Always remember, folks, if you ever get bored with nothing to do, well, take a walk deep into the woods. You might be surprised at what you might find. We want to thank our viewers and listeners for tuning in, for you all have been so kind. You can catch our podcast on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Unsolved Mysteries not related to the TV show, and on our MJ website. My name is Mark, and I was your host for tonight's show. That's the end of our MJ podcast, Episode 4, Part 3, Deep into the Woods, Human Trafficking Ring of Children in the 1920s to 1950. We say to all of you, happy holidays and good night from Plattsburgh, New York.
Creep where you've been.